Senior FBI official forcefully resisted Trump administration firings. Senior FBI official forcefully resisted Trump administration firings. That's quite a headline, isn't it? And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're going deep on some pretty significant events surrounding the FBI, those January 6 investigations, and some reported attempts to carry out what some are calling politically motivated firings.
You know, what really jumps out at you from that headline is the tension. There's this fundamental conflict, right, between the political nature of the executive branch and the need for independent law enforcement to ensure, well, impartial justice. It's not just about a few individuals. This goes to the heart of our system.
Absolutely. And to help us navigate this complex situation, our main source today is a video transcript from the Glenn Kirshner YouTube channel. Now, Kirshner, he brings a legal perspective to these events, which is going to be invaluable as we try to make sense of all the intricacies. And, we can't forget the backdrop here. Thousands of FBI agents dedicated themselves to investigating the January 6th Capitol riot. It was a huge undertaking, absolutely critical for understanding and protecting our democracy.
And it's easy to forget the sheer scale of that investigation or the dedication it demanded from those agents. Their work was about more than just identifying individuals present that day. They were piecing together an attack on the core principles of our government.
Exactly. And here's where things get really interesting. The central conflict seems to be the Trump administration's alleged efforts to retaliate against those very agents, the ones doing the incredibly difficult work of the January 6th investigation. And they reportedly tried to do this by unlawfully terminating their employment. Now, if you're someone who values justice and the rule of law, like I know you are, you're probably asking yourself, what actually happened? And what are the legal ramifications of all this?
These events really force us to look at the balance of power in our system. The safeguards that are supposed to protect the people who serve in our institutions from, political interference. Can partisan motivations really be allowed to override due process? That's a question we have to grapple with.
Our mission today is to break down the details of this reported resistance. Who stood up? What exactly were they resisting? What are the legal arguments? And what could the consequences be, both for the FBI and for the broader principle of an independent Justice Department? Let's start with a key figure in all of this, acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll.
Driscoll's position as acting director is a crucial point here. It's a temporary role, but as the NBC News report detailed, he was the one who reportedly resisted a directive from the Justice Department. And this directive was about facilitating these firings. The fact that someone in a temporary position would take such a stand, that says something.
It really does. And this pushback was so significant that, according to NBC News' sources, some within the FBI were actually worried that Driscoll himself would be dismissed because of it. That's a huge risk, personal and professional, especially when you're in a temporary leadership role.
Yeah, and the fact that he was willing to put his own position on the line, it might suggest something deeper. It might point to a culture within the FBI, a commitment to institutional integrity that transcends political appointments. That would be a crucial safeguard for the rule of law, wouldn't it?
Absolutely. And here's a twist that might surprise you. Driscoll, the person who reportedly resisted these firings, he was actually Trump's acting FBI director. This wasn't someone appointed by a later administration. This was happening within the existing leadership.
That's an important distinction. It suggests that this resistance wasn't necessarily partisan, but maybe a commitment to the FBI itself to following established procedures, even within the Trump administration.
Now, we also have Kash Patel in this story. He was Trump's nominee for the permanent FBI director position, and his nomination was under consideration by the Senate. And Patel, he has a history of being pretty critical of the FBI, particularly their investigations into Trump and the January 6th riot.
His past criticism raises some big questions. How would he approach leading the FBI if he were confirmed? His views could be seen as, potentially undermining the independence and impartiality of the Bureau. It's something to think about.
Interestingly, during his confirmation hearing, Patel made a public promise. He said under oath that all FBI employees will be protected against political retribution. Sounds reassuring, right?
It does. It sets a clear expectation.
Yeah.
But the events that followed, according to that NBC News report, they seem to contradict that promise. That's why this is also concerning and why we're diving deep into it.
Just a day after that promise, Driscoll reportedly notified the FBI workforce about a directive he had received. This came from Emil B., the acting deputy attorney general at the time. And importantly, Emil B. was also Trump's former personal defense lawyer.
Emil B's past as Trump's lawyer. That raises red flags, doesn't it?
Huh?
It suggests a potential conflict of interest and makes you question the motivations behind these orders. It draws a direct line from the former president to these actions within the Justice Department. It blurs the lines, doesn't it?
Exactly. Driscoll told the FBI that he had been directed by Emil B. to remove 8 senior FBI executives. That's not just a small change, that's a lot of high-ranking officials potentially being targeted.
Yeah, and removing that, many senior executives could have a ripple effect throughout the FBI. It could disrupt investigations, create instability, and even foster fear among the agents. It's a big deal.
And it gets even more serious. Driscoll also said he'd been told to provide the names of every FBI employee involved in the January 6th investigations. We're not talking about a small team. Driscoll reportedly said this list would include thousands of FBI employees, including himself. And remember, he was a member of the FBI's elite hostage rescue team.
That's a highly unusual request. Asking for the names of everyone involved in such a high-profile, politically sensitive investigation could be seen as an attempt to target agents simply for doing their jobs. And the fact that Driscoll, with his background, was reportedly on that list shows just how broad this request was.
Driscoll's response to all of this is very telling. He told the FBI agents that he was committed to following the law, to upholding FBI policies. This suggests that he saw these commands as potentially unlawful, maybe even politically motivated, and he was resisting them.
His commitment to following established procedures is important. It shows that he recognized a potential overreach of authority and was trying to protect the FBI and its employees. He was standing up for what he believed was right.
Driscoll even sent a message to the FBI agents. He said, and I'm quoting here, "As we've said since the moment we agreed to take on these roles, we are going to follow the law, follow FBI policy, and do what's in the best interest of the workforce and the American people, always."
That's a pretty clear statement.
It is. It shows his sense of responsibility to the agents under his command, but also to the American people. He's putting the law and procedure first, above any political pressure.
And to give you an idea of how these events were seen within the FBI, there's a message that reportedly went around among the personnel. It said, "Bottom line, Doge came over and wanted to fire a bunch of J6 agents." Driscoll's an absolute stud, held his ground, and told White House proxy Doge to F off. That's pretty direct.
It is informal, but it gives you a sense of the reaction within the FBI. They saw Driscoll's actions as important, something to admire. The language reflects that.
So what do legal experts say about these attempted firings?
Well, many have pointed out that very few of the firings by the Trump administration have been considered legal under civil service laws. The main issue is due process.
The civil service laws, they're there to protect government employees from being fired unfairly or for political reasons. Due process means employees have a right to know the charges against them and to respond before any action is taken. It's a fundamental right.
The Trump White House, on the other hand, claimed that the president has an absolute right to fire anyone he wishes within the executive branch. That's a pretty bold claim.
That claim leads to a debate about presidential power. While the president has a lot of authority, it's not unlimited. The Constitution and laws, like those civil service protections, put limits on that power.
And the Supreme Court has ruled on this. They said federal employees do have a right to a hearing before they can be disciplined or fired. This goes directly against the idea of an absolute right to fire someone without cause.
The Supreme Court's rulings emphasize the importance of due process. It's a check on the executive branch, ensuring they can't just fire civil servants without a good reason. This protects the idea of a non-political public service.
Joyce Vance, a former U.S. attorney and legal analyst for NBC News, went so far as to call these attempted firings illegal. She said career federal employees can only be fired for things related to their conduct or performance, not for political reasons.
That's a crucial point. A nonpartisan public service depends on protecting employees from political retaliation. If people could be fired just for their political beliefs, it would politicize the entire system. That would undermine its effectiveness and the public trust.
And even if these FBI agents were to sue and win their jobs back, there's still damage done to their careers. Being targeted like this can have long-term consequences, even if the accusations are proven false.
Yeah, even if they're cleared, the suspicion can linger. It can hurt their future prospects, both in government and in the private sector. And it can discourage others from doing their jobs properly, especially in sensitive investigations. It creates a chilling effect.
So when we look at what acting FBI Director Brian Driscoll reportedly did, it seems like he was standing up against a potential abuse of power. And Glenn Kirshner, based on his years as a federal prosecutor working with the FBI, he believes that FBI agents are not going to just sit back and accept politically motivated interference in their work.
Kirshner's perspective is valuable. He's seen firsthand how FBI agents operate. They're dedicated to the law, to doing their jobs properly. They're not likely to just go along with something they believe is wrong, especially if it's driven by politics.
So the key takeaway for you is this. There was significant resistance within the FBI, led by Acting Director Driscoll, to potential politically motivated firings of agents investigating January 6.
This situation highlights a tension in our system, the balance between the power of the executive branch and the protections for civil servants. It's crucial to maintain the independence and integrity of institutions like the FBI.
And it raises some big questions. What are the limits on the president's power to fire people? How do we protect civil servants from political pressure? And what happens to the idea of an independent law enforcement if those lines get blurred?
It makes you think about the core principles of a democracy. We need impartial application of the law. When politics starts to influence that, it's dangerous.
As you think about all of this, consider the actions of people like Acting Director Driscoll. He faced potential risks, but chose to stand up for what he believed was right. That takes courage. And it's those individuals who help protect the integrity of our institutions.
Absolutely. Their actions remind us that upholding principles, even in the face of pressure, is essential for a functioning democracy. We need more people like that.
Couldn't agree more.
It's something we all have a responsibility to think about, to be aware of, and to speak up when we see something wrong.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you with that thought. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
Thanks for having me.
Until next time, stay informed and stay engaged.
And stay vigilant.